Bom dia a todas e todos.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I would like to greet Deborah, the president of Barnard College, and to thank on behalf of the federal government and on my own behalf, I would like to thank her for the invitation I was made to participate in this meeting that undoubtedly will generate lots of discussion. This event itself has already created an impact in the relationship between Brazil and the US, especially between Barnard College and our federal government. Thank you so much. I would like to greet all participants of the different debates, and I would like to greet Patra and all the speakers that will participate in this meeting. And why Patra? I chose her because she is the daughter of a dear friend of mine, and I've known her for a long time, just like her sister Elena, who passed away a long time ago. I have Linda Goulart with me and the communications advisor, Nabel. I would like to start by telling you about public policies geared toward women. President Dilma is the first female president this country has. President Dilma and the policies promoting women's participation in every area. I'm going to name a few, but I won't give you all the names. That would be too long. We have a program called Brasil Carinhoso with the full-time daycare centers, full-time schools being implemented as we speak. To us, having a full-time daycare center means that we are looking at the two ends of the life cycle to children who, beyond the shadow of a doubt, need to develop their cognitive knowledge. They need a safe environment, a place where they can socialize from a very early age so that they can develop their cognition, their reasoning, and become our future Brazilian citizens. And on the other end of the spectrum, we provide mothers a very reassuring environment so that they can go to work being certain that their children are well taken care of. Another program called My House, My Life, being controlled by women, along with men, of course, for the first time. When a couple decides for a divorce, if there are children involved, the mother will be responsible for the children. Another program called Family Allowance, with 96% of women who are in charge of receiving that allowance. This allows women to enter the labor market and reacquire economic independence, which is really vital. Another program called Rede Cegonha that reduced mother mortality because of prevention and all the care we take during pre-birth, during the labor, the prevention of cervical cancer, mental health, women's health in the labor market.
Atenção determinada na melhoria da qualificação dos serviços.
We try to improve the services provided to women who are victimized by violence, be it domestic or sexual violence.
São parte de uma política maior.
These are all part of an overarching policy, which is the national policy providing full attention to women. All these activities undoubtedly consolidate
Movimento enorme
an enormous movement
de protagonismo das mulheres neste
trying to
na sociedade.
have women in a protagonist role in this government and in Brazilian society. There are women in a strong ministry and the chief of staff,
Relações institucionais,
planning, institutional relations,
direitos humanos,
human rights,
direito social,
social development,
meio
and
ambiente,
fighting hunger, the Ministry of the Environment, Equality,
e o Ministério
Culture, and the Ministry of Women's Policy that I have the honor to preside.
médico.
Therefore, this is a unique number of 10 women who are ministers in this government.
São 27%.
So we account for 20% of all ministries.
A primeira mulher,
We also have
Graça Foster,
the first woman, Graça Foster, leading the largest Brazilian company, an oil company.
entre as estatais e privadas. E a 10ª
And
maior do mundo.
it is the 10th largest company in the world according to Forbes.
A presidenta Dilma tem
President Dilma
um modelo
has been a role model for the new generations of women.
Eu lembro aqui o programa Mulher e Ciência,
There is another program called Women in Science under my responsibility.
edital para as relações,
And we put out a bid for tender
terminou recentemente.
that ended recently.
As mulheres mais lembradas nas redações
The most remembered women in the projects that were sent in were Cleopatra, Joanne of Arc, and Anita Garibaldi.
e também pela primeira vez
And for the first time ever, we see President Dilma
mulheres inspiradoras.
as an inspiring woman for young girls.
Uma pequena história
Let me share with you a story
numa festa de
that happened during a birthday party of a kid in the city of Brasilia.
A mãe perguntou para a filha:
The mother asked the daughter,
de que você quer a sua festa de aniversário?
"What do you want for your birthday party? Do you want to dress as Snow White, Cinderella?" And the
Objeto da presidenta
kid was 5. She says, "I want to be President Dilma. All girls dressed up as President Dilma with that band that she wore as president of the country. And the cake
o Planalto com
was like the Brazilian White House with President Dilma.
nenhuma criança entrou sem a faixa de
And all children had to wear that band reading President." That shows
uma família de classe
that in a middle class family in Brasilia,
muda ter uma presidenta
the game has changed. Having a female president, that began a change process, a change in mindset, showing the roles women can play, no longer in the washing machine or close to the stove. She is the number one person in the country.
se
If
de classe média alta as meninas estão mudando
in the middle class, young girls are changing
suas escolhas,
their choices.
as meninas da periferia
Young girls in the outskirts and in rural areas of this country are also changing.
vários eventos que eu vou
There are several meetings that I attend when I hear young girls saying that they want to become a president.
isso pode parecer pequeno,
That might sound small,
mas é muito forte.
but it's quite strong.
Quando a presidenta e os seus
When President Dilma
se o
in her inauguration speech, said that her number one commitment was with Brazilians, but above all, a commitment with women, because we account for 51% of the Brazilian population, and we are mother to the other half. Therefore, we are 100% protagonists in the Brazilian society. We have specific policies to train women professionally in the short, medium, and long term. For instance, the Pronatec courses. It varies from 70 to 80% of the population being trained there. We can identify women as representing from 70 to 80% of the participants. Women who took on professions that structured the female world: manicure, hairdresser, professor, seamstress. These professions are vital, but we cannot say that these are the only professions women can have or that they are able to have. We are able to be in those professions and in any other we choose, provided we have access to those, provided we have equal opportunities. And therefore, gender discrimination has to end. We created a video that was shown last year on Brazilian primetime television. The video was called Women Who Innovate. That video contained testimonials of women who took those Pronatec courses. One of them really moved me. She was saying that she was home, or rather she was working and the washing machine broke down. I don't know if it was a washing machine or a refrigerator, but something broke in the house. And they called a company to fix the problem. They had to fix, and she was watching those men fixing the machine, and she goes, "How do you do it?" And she was paying careful attention to what they were doing. And she realized she could do it herself. After that, she left her job as a maid and she took a course to open up a small business in this area to fix washing machines and refrigerators. And today she does have a business of her own. Today she is the boss. And she said that this was thanks to the Pronatec courses. These are professions that were traditionally reserved to men, and she said that she doubled or tripled her income. Let me tell you a little about women in the labor market. The expansion of women's participation has been one of the most significant aspects in the labor market in Brazil. Although, according to PNAD, women accounted for 47.6% of the labor market, and that's below of men, which is 68%. The presence of women has been increasing quickly, and it's important to underscore some policies that have a very important impact for women. An increased formalized labor market, the percentage of women in formal jobs grew more than 10 percentage points between 2001 and 2011, although they are a majority in informal businesses. And informality is significantly higher among African American women. 52% of African American women are working in informal jobs as compared to Caucasian women that account for 38.2%. An increase in minimum wages in Brazil had a very positive impact in women's income. An expanded access to production credit, allowing for more labor opportunities, above all in small businesses. Increased education levels. And this is a meeting on education. Education is an important factor to encourage women to join the labor market. Today, education among women is higher than that among men. That also shows that there is a lot of inequality, discrimination, a gender bias that is resistant to change. Income discrepancy between men and women didn't follow the improvement in women's education, unfortunately. Among those who have been working that have more than 15 years of education, women are 54.6, but the average income of women only accounts for 70% of what men make. Likewise, the presence of women in leadership position is extremely limited. Although we need more than government actions to change that situation. The Secretariat for Women's Policies develops programs for gender and race equality to promote changes in labor relations, in organizational structures of companies, to promote equality among men and women. This year, we have had the fourth edition of the program involving 81 companies and institutions, and we will soon launch the fifth edition of this program. I would like to tell you that the biggest difficulty women have, and I truly believe this is not our privilege in Brazil, but I can only speak about Brazil. The difficulty is much more in access to a career after they join the labor market, rather than access to the labor market itself. The problem is promotion. Promotion is made difficult because of gender discrimination. And women are discriminated against for different reasons. Maternity, to name one, and maternity leave. It's also important to emphasize the situation of rural female workers. Investments to improve their labor conditions in the rural area is also restricted to the lack of access to social policies and citizenship rights. The percentage of women who own a piece of land in the land reform program went up from 24.1% in 2003 to more than 55% currently, because of the new law that was enacted. Now men and women are entitled to have the possession of the land. This year we will reach 1 million women who have a document. This is not document distribution, but women who actually have a document to prove their status. That makes a difference, because women with that document can have access not only to credit, but they also become a full citizen. This year, we will reach 1 million women with that document. As I said, a civil document is vital to have access to other social policies like credit, public procurement, etc., besides other basic rights like voting. 14 million women work the land today, and the vast majority with no income. Today, with the public procurement program, there is a specific program for technical assistance for rural workers. This allows women to get more organized. One more category of workers are those who work as a maid. Although we have a smaller number today because some of them are working with commerce today, being a maid is the #1 profession of a woman. There is a migration to other professions, but that's another phenomenon that we observe today. But I would like to mention that last year at the federal government, we approved the expansion of maid wages so that they can have the same rights as other workers in the country. There are only 4 items that depend on a union organization. And in the month of March, the House of Representatives and the Senate have already approved that change in the legislation. Actually, a commission at the Senate, and expanded rights of maids will be granted. I would also like to tell you that this year, the Secretariat for Women's Policies initiated a bid for tender for rural workers working with production. In the 2 months after the publication of that bid, we had 517 people applying countrywide. These were groups that had already been organized throughout the country from all the regions of the country. We awarded 10 of them, and we chose as finalists 30 of those groups. Why am I telling you this? Just to show you how women in the rural area are thriving. In the justice system, for the first time, we have a larger number of women, even at the Federal Supreme Court. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, the participation of Minister Carmen Lucia at the Supreme Court was really vital, because she was the one for the first time ensuring a minimal quota for women in the 2012 elections. In Brazil, we have a law that says if you have 70% of one gender, you have 30% of the other gender. But women never reached 30%. Last year, we exceeded that number, and we reached 31% of women as candidates to the legislative and to the executive branches. However, there is still a point of reflection, which is a challenge that we must face. We must evolve in our political parties so that women can have more access to the resources to be elected. As to career progression, as I mentioned, women still have a long way to go. We need more equal treatment in the labor market. In Brazil, women work more or less, 26 hours a week. at home. So they have a double job, which is a hindrance for them to take on better positions. Women are not participating as much as they could. They account for 8% of everyone at the Congress. In the executive branch, there are over 800 as mayors in a total of over 5,000 municipalities in Brazil, and only one woman is the mayor in a capital city, which is the city of Boa Vista, and 2 women are governors, Maranhão and Rio Grande do Norte. Domestic violence and sexual violence. The federal government has a very strong policy in that area. As President Dilma said, it's tolerance below zero for gender violence. We know that this violence against women is a wound, is a worldwide wound. No country in the world can have democracy accepting violence against women, and that open wound has to be closed no matter what. In Brazil, we have a plan to prevent people trafficking, especially against women for sexual exploitation. This year alone, we arrested 2 gangs in Spain trafficking women for sexual exploitation purposes. These were women without document that were maintained as hostages. They were freed and they were brought back to Brazil, or they were sent to whatever country they lived in. On the 13th, we launched the largest program to fight gender violence. It was called Women Living Without Violence. The federal government will invest 265 million reals in 2 years. In that, 137 million in 2013 and 127 million in 2014. What does that program entail? Women living without violence. The expansion of a hotline where we receive calls about suspected violent cases. The creation of a service center for women in border areas. Continued awareness campaigns and humanized treatment in reference hospitals, as well as forensic medicine institutes to collect evidence of the crime if there is a case of rape, and the safekeeping of that evidence in a safe place. 5 campaigns in 2 years. We will invest 100 million reals. The House of Brazilian Women. What is that? The integration of different services under the same roof. A welcoming, good-looking, and humanized, climatized environment. And in the 26 capital cities in Brazil, we will have one such house, as well as in the federal district. What is the advantage of that integration? once and for all, women will no longer have to knock at every door looking for services. So there will be transportation provided. They will fetch women and take them to this house, the House of Brazilian Women, where there will be a specific precinct to serve women. There will be psychic and social attention and different levels of support. For instance, there will be a cross-functional team to train them for entrepreneurial purposes. With branches of our different training institutions such as Senac and Senai. And there will be a playhouse for recreation of those children going to the center with their mothers. And there will be temporary lodging provided to women who have nowhere to go, or women who are waiting for an injunction to be issued.
The state governments are going to adhere to this program, and we already have many future members, and this will be done with a partnership with the federal government. And we also signed a term of cooperation with the judiciary powers with the federal public attorney, so that all the services that are attribution of this level of the judiciary be also properly implemented in these spaces according to the rules and the norms and rules and regulations of the system. Now, 25 millions will be invested to expand the services in such a way so that this expansion will change the service provided. So immediately when the woman reports or asks for help, she will be immediately referred to the most adequate service, whether it is health, safety, whether it is the home, the house of the Brazilian woman. And currently, we also give services to women who are suffering vulnerability, violence, that are in Portugal, Spain, and Italy. And also, we shall expand. We have 3 special centers, which is an area for our frontiers. One is in Foz de Iguaçu in the south, in the north, and the west. And we're going to expand to the state of Roraima, Acre, Mato Grosso do Sul, other states in Brazil in the northeastern area, and in the south, Rio Grande do Sul, and another one which is Mato Grosso do Sul. These are states that have borderline situation, that have frontiers with other Latin American countries. And finally, I want to say that of the 85 hospitals that are included in this program, will provide services 24 hours a day. We will send a protocol to all the police precincts so that they can refer the women that come to ask for help to go to what we call the House for Brazilian Women. 13 million reals will be invested for the custody of evidence provided. And I would like to end saying that we're going to face the violence of gender because it brings the woman to the center of society as a subject in its own right. And in eliminating one of the biggest wounds or sores of women in the societies, in the current world. We are giving to these women a sense of life, a sense of citizenship. So we are saying to these women who are anonymous, women who are submitted to violence, and that until then we're afraid to report this violence. And now that we have this like a 0800, and there's a law called Maria de Peña, it's one of the 3 best laws in the world to face women's violence. So now women feel stronger, more confident in themselves, because they believe that their word is valid. Their word will be heard. Their word makes sense to the government and to the Brazilian state. And that the Brazilian government trusts these women, and that these women are a fundamental subject of a cultural change, of a change in standards, of a change in conduct, and a change in life. So for us, from the federal government, the fact that we can share with you our policies, our public policies, it is an enormous pleasure to be here today. And I would like to say that our doors are open, and we at the Brazilian government, we are open. Our doors are open to any partnership. And I have an object of desire. This is my important goal, Deborah, which I would love to have a partnership with Barnard College while I'm in the federal government and while I am the Minister of Policies for Women. Because you see, in this way, we can not only exchange experiences, but if we have a partnership, we can strengthen women in the field of science without frontiers. Thank you very much, and I embrace each and every one of you.
Thank you so much from all of us to the Minister for her inspiring words and fascinating facts about some of the wonderful things that are underway right now in Brazil. The Minister has very graciously agreed to take just 1 or 2 questions from the floor, and we have pre-selected some very lucky students who will ask her a couple of questions. Please.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Proofer, and I'm from Graded School of São Paulo.
Her name, your name again?
Stephanie Proofer.
Stephanie Proofer, da Grade São Paulo.
And my question is, since you stepped into the role of Minister of the Secretariat of Policies for Women, what has surprised you in working on these issues from a governmental perspective as opposed to an academic perspective?
Como secretária do Ministério da Mulher, o que te surpreendeu ao tratar as questões das mulheres de uma forma prática em comparação com a forma acadêmica?
Well, what surprised me is because I come from the university. I am the professor of the Federal University of the city of São Paulo. And I had a very positive surprise because I had to roll up my sleeves and do things, really put things into practice, hands-on, because to be a public manager has in itself an enormous responsibility, because now what I have to do, whatever I do, is for all Brazilian women, independently of their race, the color, or their religion, or their age, their life cycle they're in. So whether they are urban or rural, as a researcher, I have a freedom in my way of thinking, and also as a public manager, I have to respect, when I work for the government, I have to respect all these differences, and I have to learn how to work with these differences. This was an important success and a victory for me. Thank you. My name is Giovanna Nasral. I'm from the American School in Campinas, and I will translate my own question later on. And the International Day of Women, you said the government had given more resources to end with the violence against women. What are the obstacles that you have seen, and what has been the response of society? Well, thank you for your answer. I asked Petra to translate for me everything so I wouldn't miss anything. Sometimes you miss, and you miss the importance and the meaning of details. What was your question again? Oh, March 8th. That's what you want to know. The policy that we have to face violence, and what are the obstacles? Well, the obstacles, I think one of them we have already overcome, which was the lack of resources to implement a state plan, a state project. So President Dilma, she invested $265 million in the first phase, and investing in capital cities around. She is giving us the example. And in her comment on March 8th, she was very brave, as usual. She's always very determined. And she said that men who hit women should remember the love they received from their mother. And if they don't remember, they should remember that the president of this country is a woman, and she is not fearful of facing injustice or people who are unfair. So she would never accept violence against women. The law, Maria da Penha, puts men that are reported in jail. So I think we are beginning to overcome this obstacle, which is the financial obstacle, which is an issue about resources. Another obstacle is to break a paradigm of the culture, which it is still you're still allowed to hit women. So this patriarchal policy, we have massive campaigns on television, and education, and education. Since the primary school, high school, and because it is simply not possible to allow women or even children, and that children have to watch their mothers be beaten by their husbands and fathers. So we have to change the mentality. This is more difficult. To change a mentality is a process. Well, thank you very much.